Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Lauren Bermudez, and I'm the Director of Field Marketing here at Namogoo. Today, we're going to be discussing converting first-time shoppers into loyal customers. Over the course of the next 45 minutes, we'll cover why first-time shoppers is a major e-commerce challenge for 2021 and how predicting their intent and improving customer experience can help brands solve this problem in the long term. We'll also have a panel discussion with two amazing brands to hear firsthand how they're addressing this issue in their organizations. With us today, we have Philippe Papich, who's a Senior Director of Digital Growth at Crocs, Charlie Wilson-Merklew, who's the Head of Strategy and Planning International E-commerce at Marks & Spencer's, Lucy Bousson, who's the Chief Product Officer at Content Square, and our very own Anat Etizoni, Chief Marketing Officer at Namogoo. Before we get into the presentations, just a couple of quick reminders. If you have a question, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We will take questions from the audience following the panel discussion. Additionally, you will receive a copy of this, a recording of this webinar within 48 hours. So you can review the content again if you'd like, or perhaps share it with a colleague. Anat will be kicking us off today. Anat, over to you.
Thanks, Lauren. Great to be here today, and thank everybody for joining us. Indeed, the extent of the first-time shoppers in 2021 is growing. Lauren, if you can move to the next slide. Yeah, so the extent of first-time shoppers in 2020 is growing. In January this year, we validated this by conducting a survey of senior e-commerce managers about their top priorities in 2021, and they expect the portion of first-time shoppers to keep increasing. Their answer revealed that 52% of e-commerce leaders expect at least 1 out of 4 customers to be first-time shoppers, and the majority of e-commerce leaders expect traffic from these first-time shoppers to increase by over 10% this year. Next slide, yes. In this survey, we also asked them how first-time visitors differ from returning visitors, and we found out that the common traits are that they are more sensitive to price, they are easily distracted by competing offers, they are less loyal, and ultimately we see that the new visitor conversion rate is 36% lower than returning visitors conversion rate. So when asked about the challenges in winning over the first-time shoppers and earning their loyalty, most of them said the main challenge is not having enough data about them. So today we understand that intent is a game changer for e-commerce because we realize that visitor needs change over each session, and intent prediction is the only way to truly personalize for every visitor in every session and react in real time to their needs. And in fact, this can be done for all visitors, even if they're anonymous. How? To begin with, there's a lot of non-PII data that can be collected. Some of it is explicit data, meaning data that is gathered from trackable information like campaign source, geographic location, or data gathered from the user's actions, such as filling out a form, conducting a search, adding an item to the cart, and so on. We can combine this with implicit data from the online behavior, such as browsing history, viewing patterns, time spent on page, and so forth. The reason we do all that is because we want to understand where they are in the stage of the shopper's purchase journey. Some first-time shoppers are just searching. So they are only window shopping or searching for information, while others come prepared after a lot of research and their purchase intent is high. So analyzing this will allow us to understand the intent of the shopper in each particular session. Yeah, so how do we get there? The more traditional way is to use different kind of behavioral segmentation, but this usually requires a lot of work. So integrating data sources, setting up different rules, segments, constantly A/B testing against each other, and so on. But there's a much easier way when you let the machine work for you. So when you need to collect millions of data points, analyze and react in real time, you want to use machine learning for that. So now let's talk about the data that machine learning can automatically collect without PII. So I actually want to share an example of less common data points that can be collected. Let's show an example of that. That's a good one. For example, there are things that happen on the consumer side that affect their experience and are indicators for intent. Some are clearly identifiable, such as which device they're on. Is it a PC, a tablet, a mobile phone? But some are harder to detect, such as the strength of the device. And actually, when machine learning measures the available CPU on the device, we can correlate that to profitability to purchase, probability to purchase, and are also able to adjust the customer experience. Another example would be the extensions that operate on the consumer side. So knowing that your visitors has a coupon extension or an Amazon assistant can tell you a lot about them, even if they aren't actively using the coupons in the session. Also, other extensions, such as password savers, have correlation to different behavior and conversion rates. Another topic I want to touch on are the insights gained from observing the behavior of your visitors on your own site or your app. So you can analyze the behavior on your site to understand their interests and accurately interpret their intent. And when you compare it to other site visitors, you can find correlation. However, limiting yourself only to your site will tell you half the picture. Comparing how your visitors behave across a vast network can give you an unfair advantage. With a large network, you can analyze your shoppers' behavior across hundreds of sites in different industries and can compare to benchmark behaviors. So you can predict intent at scale. Yeah, so at this point, you're probably wondering how all this can help you. Well, intent can tell you a lot about your first-time shoppers. What is their motivation in each visit? What will lead them to purchase? What do they need to move forward and when? And there are many ways you can utilize intent for increasing revenues and gaining a competitive advantage. For example, using an intent-based algorithm can predict and determine the most effective promotion to deliver in each and every session, be it a discount or a gift, or no promotion at all for the ones that don't need it. And when you optimize based on intent, you are able to find what will have the most impact on your revenue and KPIs, but you can also consider your business needs as a whole. So your inventory needs or inventory limitations, pricing limits, margins, also depending on what kind of brand perception you are looking to maintain. And this is what we do here at Namogoo. Our digital journey continuity platform is able to predict every single customer journey and keep them flowing by removing hesitation and automatically delivering what's needed to drive the journey forward. Our flagship products include customer hijacking prevention, which identifies and blocks unauthorized ads that are injected into consumer websites, web sessions, and appear on e-commerce sites, grabbing customers' attention and their revenue. Another product is intent-based promotion, which predicts the optimum minimal incentive for each session at the ideal moment of the customer journey. So thank you for listening thus far, and back to you, Lauren.
Thanks so much for those great insights, Anat. I'm very excited to have Content Square with us today. Content Square is an Namogoo partner, and our solutions are complementary. We're working to integrate them to actually deliver even more value to our clients. As I mentioned earlier, we have Lucy Buisson with us, who's our Chief Product Officer at Content Square. And today she's going to be talking about improving customer experience for first-time shoppers. Lucy, over to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure to share the stage with you. Perfect. So a little bit of context before talking about first-time comer. I'm pretty sure I don't have to elaborate too much on this, but last year we've been hit for a massive storm, and this massive storm had a lot of consequences, but a huge consequence, also a huge impact on digital transformation. I don't know if you've seen this joke already, but it's not really a joke, right? It's really what happened last year. And another way to discuss about it is to see what McKinsey is saying about e-commerce growth and e-commerce penetration, that in only 3 months last year, e-commerce growth and penetration increased like it would have been in 10 years without COVID. So this is huge. This is a massive opportunity for anybody who is working on e-commerce, everybody who is working on digital assets. And with this, a lot of behavior have changed. So you see that 80% of people declare that they bought more online this year than they never had before. Also, you see that 23% declare that they discovered more brands, and 46% declare that they purchased more on mobile. And you see like other trend also booming with this digital acceleration and e-commerce penetration, which is 16% stopped shopping with some brand. So you can see that it can be a critical impact, like when your customer are switching from buying in store to buy online. If they don't like your website, or if your experience is not at the right level of expectation, you lose your customer. We see also that mobile apps usage have raised, and that more and more users shop via social media. Talking about a new versus returning visitor, we see that last year 44% of traffic was made by a new user in average, and you can see that for some industry it's more than 50%. So for beauty and for luxury, you see that new user represent more than 50% of the business. So that's why it's just critical to have those new users in mind all the time when you think about the experience and when you think about your website or your mobile apps. And the thing with a new visitor is that you never get a second chance to do a first good impression. And so today we wanted to give you we wanted to discuss 3 main areas where you need to focus your time and your energy if you want to do a first good impression. The first one is the performance of your website, like the importance of page load time. We see that like 100 millisecond delay can decrease conversion rate by 7%, which is huge. And a 2-second delay is likely to double your bounce rate. So working on your performance is critical. Google Core Web Vitals update in April is going to increase the impact of performance, because they're gonna increase like the weight they give to performance into their SEO algorithm, and so choose organic traffic. Few like common advice, limit the use of JavaScript. You don't want to have too many resources called by your website. This is what creates most of the time the biggest issue. You need to balance design and speed, and you need to balance content creation and content push on your website with the speed of your website. And the way to do that is to use data. You cannot anticipate what is going to have an impact, and you cannot anticipate what is going to engage your customer. So you always need to do this arbitrage between adding more content to engage your customer, but not adding too much to not slow down your pages. And the way to find the right balance is really to use data to understand what's engaging the most your customer, and to understand like what is impacting the most your performance. Talking of content, what we see with new visitor is that 1 over 2 visitors are going to bounce just after they see the first page, and that 45% of content goes unseen on your website. So it's critical for you, for your brand, and for your digital strategy to be able to identify which content are engaging for your customer. So a few advice here. You really need to work on the visibility of your content and the discoverability of your content and the attractiveness of your content. So you always need to identify which are the content that are the most attractive and use those content in the most visible part of your website. Really think of your website as a real estate property. Like in stores, you're always going to use the window to present the most attractive products, to present the most attractive content. You really need to do the same with your website. And again, here, you cannot predict what your customers are going to like. And especially in unpredictable moment like we are right now with the pandemic and the crisis and everything. So here again, you need to use data. And as the last topic we wanted to chat today is that the rise of the mobile continues. We've seen an increase in 2020 about 16%, which can be against intuition because we spend more and more time at home. So we could think that people are using more as desktop, but it's not the case. They use more and more your website on their mobile and also mobile apps. And you see how the traffic has boomed and raised across the year. And and what you need to keep in mind is that conversion rate and still lower on mobile and bounce rate still higher. So if you don't want to lose business by having people switching from the web to the mobile, you really need to adapt your experience to mobile. So always design with mobile first mindset. If it's working on mobile, you have a high chance that it's going to work on the web, and mobile is more challenging. Your client have more expectation on mobile, so always think mobile first. Again, improve content visibility and optimize your process and optimize your checkout on mobile. Here again, to be able to understand where your users are struggling, to be able to understand where the friction are, you really need to use data. And so I think for now, it's it has become obvious that at Content Square, for us, everything starts with data. And what we do at Content Square is we collect every single interaction between your user and your website or your app. And so you are able to measure all the micro behavior, able to know what are the contents that are the most attractive, what are the contents that are driving the more revenue, what are the contents that engage your customer. And I would say on the opposite way, also identify where are the frustration, what are the friction for your user, and which content are increasing your loading time. And the goal is really to empower everybody in the team with a super easy data visualization, as you can see, whereas our star feature, I would say, is the zoning here on the screen. Great. Oops. Thank you very much. I hope this was helpful, and I think it's now the right moment for the panel, right?
It is. Thank you so much, Lucy. It's the moment you've all been waiting for, the panel discussion. So alongside Lucy and Annette, who you've just heard from, we also have with us Felice Papich, Senior Director of Digital Growth at Crocs. Felice is a seasoned digital expert and is in charge of website revenue and optimization at Crocs. We also have with us Charlie Wilson-Marklew, Head of Strategy and Planning, International eCommerce at Marks & Spencer's. Charlie is an e-commerce strategy expert and is responsible for Marks & Spencer's site across 38 international markets. Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm
going to stop sharing so we can see everyone's beautiful faces. Charlie, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Can you just tell us a little bit about your focus for 2021 and what 2020 has taught you?
Yeah, of course. And thanks for having me on the panel. So our focus in M&S, so just for a bit context, my role focuses on M&S international and e-commerce only. So we've seen internationally in all our markets a huge shift towards e-commerce, as referenced in the earlier presentation, a huge growth in the participation in e-com across all channels over traditional kind of physical retail. So that has, I guess, in the context of Marks and Spencer as a brand that operates both stores and online, has led to a shift in focus at a corporate level to online. So we, if anything, for us, is just doubling down. And then within that, we want to kind of lean into that growth. So we are looking at things like, for example, acquiring many more new customers. And then for those who we have acquired and those who are already familiar with our brand, ensuring that there is a reason to come back and that the experience was enjoyable and that they have a desire to repeat purchase with us. So if anything, it's just leaning into what we were already doing, I think would be the takeaway for me.
Awesome. And then Felice, how about you? What is your focus for this year and how is it different from previous years?
Yeah, I think we kind of have a really nice mix of what we're focused on for 2021. We're really trying to build a foundation in the technology space so that we can be agile and we can make huge growth steps in 2022. And at the same time, we're really trying to increase our processes so we have iterative wins. We're constantly testing with our customer, and we can find those, small hacks that can get us, immediate revenue that can drive really good traction with our customers. So I think really looking long term in those key components like omni-channel, order processing, all of the boring stuff, and then really looking at the key components that our customers telling us they want every day, like more constant and immediate communication on a personalized level.
Absolutely. And then Charlie, what traits are you noticing in first-time shoppers and how they're behaving on your e-commerce site? What makes them different from your existing visitors?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think we would all agree with this. When you're a new visitor, you're less familiar with the brand, and we certainly find that and kind of see that in the data around customers' behavior. So we tend to see the customers who are brand new, who we've never seen before, tend to bounce more, tend to engage less, tend to visit fewer sites, and ultimately just convert to sale at a lower rate than a repeat customer. And in fact, just to answer the question directly, even when they do buy, so if they do convert, we'll be looking at lower order basket values, average order values, I should say, and we'll be looking at fewer items in the basket. So for sure, the fact that a new customer is by definition, less engaged, that leads to a very different behavior on the site. But I would say that we are to some extent comfortable with that. We know that customers have to go on a journey, have to come back a few times to become familiar with the brand. But yeah, that's certainly borne out in the data.
And Felice, how are you handle new visitors? What challenges are you seeing with them? Are they similar to what Charlie described?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're seeing some of the same trends. I think for us, we've had, even prior to COVID and then going into COVID, we had quite a shift in digital participation with our brand. So we were seeing quite a bit of new customers even prior to 2020. The big thing we really tried to focus on is learning how those customers behave on the site so that we can make modifications for that group holistically, right? So if we know what channel they're coming from and we know, whether they're new or returning, we can serve them different content. We can put different things in front of them that are more important to their shopping experience based on channel or based on knowledge of brand, so that we can kind of really suck them in and so that we don't waste their time. We all know that even on mobile, people are on our site for maybe 1 second. So we have a small amount of time to really make an impression and reduce friction and kind of model those behaviors and keep improving. I think the constant lesson for us in 2020 was that consumer behavior changes every day, and the wants that they have change every day. So the more you can pay attention to the data and what they're telling you based on behavior, the quicker we can make those modifications for the group as a whole.
Absolutely. And Charlie, I think Felice really just touched on this. So we know that first-time shoppers are more easily distracted. What tactics are you using at Marks and Spencer's to keep customers on site and remove as many distractions as possible in their experience?
Yeah, it's a good question. And again, agree that when someone's less familiar with the brand, new to the brand, you need to kind of get to the point. Now we think about distractions maybe in a slightly broader sense, or we think about more as like barriers to purchase. So in the international context, one of the first things we'll think about is the site translated? Does it offer the local payment methods that people want? So we want to, in the first instance, seem like a credible option to even begin a conversation with as a brand. So that's the first thing to say, is we look at it kind of holistically. And we also, before getting to the specific tactics, the sort of strategy of it is that, as I said earlier, we to some extent expect new customers to take a little bit of persuading and introducing to the brand. So we want to think about how do we engage a new customer. I mean, the same as for Lisa, how do you engage a new customer in the right way so they come on a journey and get comfortable and feel like they want to buy with you as a brand. And that's reflected in how we structure our kind of digital development team. So we have one team that focuses on the kind of richer, more experiential stuff. So things like save for later, wish lists, things like richer content. And then we also have a team that's focused more on the directly, how do you get customers all the way through the purchase funnel as quickly as possible, as smoothly as possible. And I think there's a role for both. If you think about the kind of the life cycle of a customer, you need to get both right for sure. But then, specifically, how do we actually, to answer your question, how do we actually get the distractions out of the way? We run a continuous program of A/B tests. So we're always kind of trying to identify little tweaks, little changes, and then we sort of test it and prove it that it does actually improve conversion. And a lot of the themes for that will be quite similar to what we discuss, things like improving site speed, things like reducing distracting imagery or distracting pop-ups, and just really making it clear what a customer is expected to do next. And then again, we come with a hypothesis, we test it and we prove it, and then we deploy it. So that's the short answer, but I thought a little bit of the strategy behind it might have been helpful color there.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Charlie. And so obviously we know distractions are a factor. Felice, in the survey that we mentioned earlier, we found that 51% of all respondents said that price was also an important factor for them. And 24% ranked it as the second most important factor. How do you take that into consideration with your brand and e-commerce strategy?
Yeah, I think that, with Crocs, we're lucky to be in a position where our product offers value at, an approachable price. So we've been lucky in that fact that we kind of already have that platform to, engage with our customers on. And actually, we've seen over the period through 2020 that we've been less promotional on like a holistic site basis. So we've actually have run less of those 50% clearance sales that are site wide. And we've actually started targeting our messages specific to customers. So if we feel that a certain particular segment responds better to either a buy one, get one, or a typical discount, or things like that, we've actually been doing a little bit more personalized pricing for them, so that we can kind of engage at a level that we know is important to them, rather than just like generally, here's these products we need to get rid of, and we know that you're going to come and engage in that, and we feel like we're actually talking to our customers, and we get to take them on more of a journey that can last through a longer period of time and really develop that lifetime value versus just focusing on price itself.
That makes a lot of sense. Charlie, just kind of digging into promotions a bit more, 79% of respondents in our e-commerce leader survey believe that discounts and incentives to capture the attention of first-time shoppers. At the same time, we also know that extensive promotions and discounts can hurt retailers' margins, brand equity, and more. How do you feel about this, and how do you get the right balance of promotions?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess in general, it depends on your brand and what you want to do with your brand. I think for Marks and Spencer, we would prefer not to be thought of as a promotionally led brand in this particular case. So we have, even before COVID, been undergoing a program of reducing the level of promotions that we offer through a variety of things, which partly just taking them out, partly trying to get our buys better. So as a kind of retail strategy perspective, reducing the level of promotions. However, there is definitely still a role for it, I think, as you've kind of indicated, and certainly certain customers do really appreciate them. So we have kind of 3 use cases that we currently go for that we think works for customers and works for the brand. One is that we like to offer new customers a introductory discount. Again, it's that kind of encouragement to say, well, just give us a try, so 10% off when you first buy. We, from a practical perspective, do it grow our basket value, because especially as from the international perspective, our cross-border logistics can be quite expensive, so average order value. So you almost do it just to make the commercials work sometimes. So we do things like 3 for 2, or you get to a certain value, you get a discount. And then the other thing we do, again, with our kind of international perspective, is we do lean into market relevant events. So where it would be odd to not be participating. So Black Friday is a big example, Singles Day in China, for example. There's lots of events where you can't not participate. And if you don't participate, it's almost, are you serious about engaging with customers in that market? So for those 3 reasons, we do run promos, even in the context of generally wanting to not run promos. And then an area that we haven't quite cracked, at least internationally, although maybe in the UK, our home market, we have done more on, is how do you reward customer loyalty on a personalized basis, which I think talks to somewhat Felice was touching on just now. So I think that's an aspiration we have. We want to be more personalized, and where we would know that customers would value that, and where we think it might encourage more engagement with the brand. I think that's where we do it in a more targeted way. Right now, we don't do that because at the moment our mechanisms are a bit too blanket. But that, I think, is just an overview of what we do now and what we would intend to do.
Great. And so Anat, we've gotten some great perspective on promotions from Felice and Charlie. How do you see retail client promotions changing this year, considering the increase in shift to online shopping?
Yeah, so actually Charlie and Felice really kind of brought the voice of our customers here, because we see many clients are asking themselves exactly that. Like a lot of brands were more heavily reliant on promotions in 2020, given the increase in shopping. And now they ask themselves, is this sustainable moving forward? And they feel that their brand equity is being compromised, their margins are eroding, and many are trying to find the right balance. So they want the promotions to drive conversion, help them improve customer retention and lifetime value, but at the same time, preserve their margins and protect their profitability. So definitely we see clients starting to rethink their strategy. And as Charlie mentioned, looking for more individualized, personalized promotions, not on a mass promotion basis. So this is definitely something that we see a lot.
Awesome. And then Felice, you touched on this a bit before. Personalization seems to be the biggest buzzword right now. What does one-to-one personalization actually mean to you, and how do you measure its success?
Yeah, I think we all wish we did more personalization than we do. And, it's a constant battle to keep up with the customer. For us, it really means trying to move with what they're telling us. So if they engage on the site in a particular way, or they look at certain product, or they go through their journey a little bit differently, we want to be able to provide the right content, the right product to that customer. So we use several different tools to be able to segment all of our customer data and to be able to actually display that, and then also be able to measure it. Our big focus is to be able to carry that journey all the way through. I think in the past, we've been doing personalization on site. We've been doing it in email. We've been doing it in certain channels, but then it doesn't carry that customer through their entire experience. So that's been our big focus, is if we give you a personalized product or content in email, you should also see that on site. And so that's been the big focus, is really there should be no friction or disruption in their journey when we talk about personalization. And then I think that really means, it really means listening. And that comes down to the data that you have on your customer. So not making assumptions as to what they want, but really watching their behaviors, listening to what they're doing, listening to survey feedback in order to actually create those experiences, rather than you as a marketer determining what you think they want. And then I think it's learning from what they tell you when they're in those segments. And then for us, I think really the other component that we kind of have this great platform for personalization within our product. So we have these items called Gibbet's Charms, which people can purchase and put in their shoes. And it's a really big focus for us to allow our customer to constantly engage with those particular products that we can bring to market quickly at a very inexpensive price for our customers. So that one really I say is a high benefit for us to continue to push that product. It causes us to get more repeat purchases, a better relationship with our customer. We can learn more about them based on what they're purchasing, and their lifetime value is incredible as we kind of see them go through the journey with us.
Awesome. And then Lucy, how have you seen businesses successfully enhance their digital experiences during the pandemic? How are those tactics and strategies carrying into this year?
Well, I think a lot has been said already, so I'm just going to emphasize stuff that both Felice and Charlie already said, but I think it's really about listening to your customer. Like the pandemic and the situation, the global situation has completely changed the way you consume and the expectation of customer, and it's changing every month, if it's not every week. So what was true yesterday or what was true a month ago is not true now. So it's super important to be able to constantly use data to be able to understand what they fancy, what they want to achieve, and what are their expectation. And I think something that is super important is to understand that the intent of the user, what he's trying to achieve with your website, is always changing. Sometimes it's going to be a window shopper and looking for inspiration. Other time is going to be a price comparator. Other time is going to be willing to buy as fast as possible. And so be able to understand those different intent and expectation on your website, and be able to, I would say, more and more personalize your approach based on these is, I think, extremely important. I think and test and learn always, but for the way you create promotion for window shopper or for price comparator won't be the same. Like a 1 hour free delivery might be much more powerful, for instance, for a window shopper, when the price comparator just want to get the best price. So classic promotion will be more powerful. So I think switching from only using demographics to using more and more intent when you think about your experience, and when you think about personalization, is super important. And I would say the other thing we see more and more is that the topic around privacy and digital trust are more and more important for our customer. And this intent-based approach is also more respectful of the privacy, because you only based your personalization or your optimization on behavior and not on PII. So I think it's definitely a huge trend for 2021 and the years coming.
Great. And then Charlie, in addition to troubleshooting website errors, brands are trying to create more innovative digital experiences to keep customers engaged and informed about new offerings. What are some ways your team is investing in digital innovation, or trying to think outside the box to engage new and existing customers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't necessarily have got some really amazing examples. We've got some, but I'll do my best to answer the question. So for our part, we try to focus on solving customer problems. I think that's where you have to start from when you think about innovation, because I think otherwise you could maybe focus on things that are exciting but irrelevant. So we try and focus on customer problems. So the big investment we actually make is in customer feedback tools. So both to understand, so I referenced A/B testing earlier, that's a form of customer feedback, but also directly on-site surveys, so whilst people are shopping, and then also post-purchase surveys to understand how they experience the full end-to-end journey. And that, for example, will point out that the big thing that in our case that stands in people's minds as maybe a negative experience might be the time it takes for the delivery to arrive, rather than necessarily a particular thing on the site. So again, we try and start the customer problems, use that to direct where we need to innovate and improve it. Focusing on the website specifically, the kind of things we tend to focus on, in line with many comments made through this session, are things like site speed is a really big one for us. Things like the ability to navigate, search, and find on the site, especially if you're a kind of standard e-commerce retailer, maybe quite a large range we are. Actually navigating to find a product and a relevant product is quite important, as is just continuously improving things like the recommendations for additional products or related products, or things that someone else might want to look into, alongside some of that richer content, the non-product content, so about the brand and about the way you could style it and the way you could put it all together. So that's the kind of things we think about. And like I say, it's not necessarily hugely groundbreaking, because a lot of that will be quite familiar maybe to this panel and to the audience, but I think it's worth reiterating that if you start with what customers are telling you and focus on that, you'll probably find there's plenty to do just from that. And that's certainly what we found, and that's what we're trying to lean into.
Great. And then Felice, what programs and campaigns do you have in place to build relationship with customers post-purchase to drive retention and loyalty? And how do you measure their success? I know you touched on Gibbets a little bit earlier already.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, really, it is taking care of the customer, through their post-purchase journey. I think it's one of those times in which the customer doesn't have a ton of information. They're very excited about their product, and depending on your logistics, could take some time or could not, right? So I think we really spend the time over communicating with our customer during that time period, so that they know what's happening. If we have, for some reason, a delay out of the warehouse, we make sure that they know that, and that we're still working on shipping their product. We give them multiple communications throughout delivery. We try and make the return process as painless as possible if they are going through that component. And then we really try and build specific journeys for each customer based on what they've purchased. So we really try and talk to them about the next iteration of the brand relationship with us. So if they purchased a classic clog, which tends to be, the product that people come to our brand for, then we kind of look at where we might take that communication and relationship from there. Is it talking about Gibbets because we can provide them with an opportunity to personalize, or is it moving them into the sandals category and really talking to them about that particular product based on color preference or things like that? So I think really it's all about ensuring that you have triggered journeys that can communicate to the customer, but it is personalized based on what they did purchase, really nurturing them through that logistics component so that they have a good experience all the way until the product arrives at their door, and even after that. And then I think it's really just providing opportunity for the customer to feel like it's an authentic communication with them after the post-purchase, right? So you really do want them to be a repeat buyer, but that has to come with actual relevant information to them versus them feeling like you're just pushing product or pushing another purchase on them.
Great. And Charlie, I'm going to ask you the same question. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention as far as programs and campaigns Marks and Spencer has to help build relationships and improve retention and loyalty?
Yeah, I think I could mention a couple of things. The first would be just to echo what Felice said. I think there really is something to say around, you much more like to get a repeat customer if the first time they purchased or the previous time they purchased, they actually enjoyed the experience. If they actually got the product they wanted, they liked the product, they got it at the price they liked, or maybe on a promo they liked, and it arrived when they expected, and all in all, it was a great experience. I think that getting that right and focusing on that, I think is worthwhile. I'd recommend that to anyone, and something that we've been doing. So it's funny, Felice mentioned this thing about maintaining good communications with the customer in case there are issues. That's something that we have actually made a big investment in recently, because that can happen, especially in the context of COVID, where maybe e-com volumes have gone way ahead of what you may have operationally originally planned. So communication absolutely essential to maintaining the kind of brand trust and the brand experience there. So would say just get it right first time is one of the first things for building the foundation for repeat purchase. And then the other element is maybe the more, again, not necessarily groundbreaking, but is worth saying, because I think it drives some value, is around proper loyalty schemes. So we don't do this so much internationally. It's something we are looking at, but in the UK, M&S's, again, home market, we have quite a comprehensive scheme called Sparks loyalty scheme that has been running for a long time, and is able to build up quite a comprehensive picture of the customers and their preferences, and maybe even the stage of life they're at, and therefore kind of really communicating in a kind of long-term and relevant way. So again, it's not just a week after you last bought something, maybe you want to buy something else. It's a bit more like, okay, it's a few months later, and we know people in your position who've just bought maternity wear. Maybe they want to buy, you have to be a bit careful, but maybe they want to buy kids wear a bit later, if all being well. So things like that you can be quite clever about and start to at scale manage a genuine long-term relationship with your customer in a relevant way. Now, I would say that internationally, in the area that I work in, we don't do that yet. So for us, the simple thing is extending the successful program that we have in one part of our business to the other part of the business. Again, that's a simple way to drive value in any organization, is take the bright spots and copy them. So I hope that helps answer your question.
Yeah, perfect. And then just kind of getting into social responsibility. Felice, we know that corporate social responsibility is growing in importance to Generation Z and millennials trying to align with brands that share their own personal values. Could you share a little bit about the social responsibility programs that your brand has had success from, and how do you measure those initiatives?
Yeah, absolutely. I think COVID was a time in which all of us really leaned into opportunity to kind of help our community. And Croc specifically, so last year we did a 60-day program where we donated 10,000 pairs a day to healthcare workers, which was really incredible. I think such a great opportunity to participate with our community. And then we also started a partnership with Feeding America, which we will maintain and continue even past into 2022. So really excited about that partnership. We've done it in retail as well as online, where we've kind of enabled our customers to donate directly to Feeding America, where I think just a $10 donation allows for, 100 meals or so. So really excited there. And then we obviously do match programs with that. And we have another exciting, I'd say, event coming up later in the year, which we're really excited to engage with our community on as well. So
that's really great to hear. Charlie, did you have any social responsibility programs at Marks and Spencer's that you wanted to mention?
Yes, yeah, I do actually. I think Marks and Spencer's is a brand that likes to pride itself on this element actually. So we have a long-standing plan, or corporate program, let's say, and it's called Plan A, and that was announced back in 2012 actually. And I think at the time we were the first FTSE 100 company, so UK listed company, to announce such a plan that was a genuine kind of wholesale commitment to a sustainable and where possible kind of ethical manner of trading. So that's continued since 2012. So covers things like the kind of more maybe more common concerns now around things like carbon emissions and getting to carbon neutrality to help combat climate change, but also includes a commitment to sustainable sourcing in a broader sense. So when we look at our food business, so we have quite a substantial food and supermarket business that covers things like animal welfare standards. When we look at the clothing business, that includes things like ethical production methods, so we avoid things like forced labor and sweatshops, all of that we're well clear of, and also just the actual, even down to like where the cotton is sourced from, make sure that's sourced in a sustainable way. So it's a really quite comprehensive commitment to operating in a sustainable and ethical way in the context of being a kind of a profitable growing business. And I would encourage anyone who is interested in the M&S brand story on that. We have a corporate website on that, so there's far too much for me to go through now, but yeah, I think it is maybe a more, just to say, it's like an important part of our brand and about how we communicate. So I think we are really genuinely committed to that.
That's wonderful. I think that's all the time we have for today. I just wanted to say thank you to our speakers and Felice and Charlie for being with us today. We really appreciate your time. And thank all of you for attending. We really are glad to see you guys on the webinar. Just a couple of reminders. We are going to be sending a survey post-event. We'd just love to hear your feedback about the content and what we discussed today. And then also, again, you'll receive a recording of the webinar within 48 hours. Thank you again, and everyone have a great day.